Good morning, everybody. I hope you can hear me because, I'm always about that audio thing and having to mess with that and get it set up. So, if you would acknowledge that you could hear me, that would be great. I appreciate it. Um, so, what I've got for you today, a good friend of mine, Billgoats. He lives in the Orkney Islands, and he reminded me of something that's been on my bucket list for HyperCard for quite a while, and that is enabling two-player or two-program, two-computer communications in HyperCard. And you can do this actually fairly easily using AppleTalk. So he did a demonstration, and I'll have a link in the description later. He did a demonstration where I guess there was an Apple Store repair center that had old classic Macs up on the wall, and it showed serving number one kind of a thing. So he reproduced that using AppleTalk and HyperCard. And I went, I really need to see if I can get the two-player thing going. So I threw together a quick and dirty game, Tic Tac Toe, but with a twist to it, and worked for a weekend and got it working, and where it could communicate between the two players. And yeah, that's what I wanted to go over this morning. A little bit of a program demonstration and a little bit of coding. So let's see, a couple of things to get out of the way. Just some laundry. So if you like what I do and want to see more, pester me about it, because I haven't been streaming a lot lately. I actually have spent quite a bit, almost a year, working on a HyperCard game. It's a mostly text adventure kind of a game, and the coding is almost done. You know how that goes. 90% of the coding takes 90% of the time, and then the last 10% of the coding takes another 90%, which is 180%, and that's correct. So the coding is mostly done. There's some assets that I need for the game, and some people are helping me out with that. So plan on releasing it eventually with a boxed set for purchase. Reasonable price, but it'll be available as a download, and I'm wrapping it in Mini VMac as an emulator. I always forget the guy's name. Bree is what he goes by. He developed the game Blob, which is a really great vertical scroller game in HyperCard. Go check it out. I'll put the link in the description later. Anyway, he used Mini VMac and then modified it so that he could wrap his game in it. So it's just a straight download, and executes, and you don't have to do any fiddling around inside Mini VMac. You just play the game. So he allowed me to use that code. It's up on GitHub. And then Eric Helgeson helped me get his version of Mini VMac working correctly. I was trying to build it and was having difficulty with it because I'm kind of old school and I don't Docker and all that kind of stuff. And so, but he was very helpful for a couple of hours on a Saturday helping me sort that out. So he'll have a link in the bottom too. I mean, this is a community effort. There isn't one of us that knows how to do everything. And I'm certainly not an expert in a lot of things, and it takes a community of people to help each other get along. So I appreciate all the help that I receive from everybody. So enough about that. Let's get into what we're going to talk about today. So I think we'll start with, hang on a second, I need to switch. Now, there's another community effort, or rather, effort of an individual that I'm leveraging for this that's going to help me with demonstrating it, and that is Infinite Mac. It was a project started a year ago. Again, I'll put a link in the description. And what they have done is built emulators online using Inscription, I think is what it's called, where you can take C code and things like that and compile it to run inside a browser in JavaScript. Anyway, so it's a virtual machine kind of a thing. And he's got these all online. He's got every Mac at Classic Mac from System 1 operating system up through... Oh, I need to share the screen. So let's do that. So you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, here it is. Infinite Mac. So he's got from 1984 System 1.0. So you can experience that all the way up through... Keep going. Mac OS 9.0. So you can go in and run these. And one of the other things that he's done is he's enabled a network layer between your browser instances so that you can use AppleTalk. And what that does is enable you to play online games. So you could do a marathon session. Now the performance is a little bit, it's emulated. You're running in a browser. You've got network latency issues that you wouldn't have had with classic AppleTalk, because AppleTalk would have been on a local network. But it does work, and it works great for this demonstration. I don't have enough capture cards and things to do more than one classic Mac, and you need 2 computers to do this kind of gaming. So anyway, so check out Infinite Mac. It's pretty cool. And persistent.info blog is where he discusses all the stuff that he's done for Infinite Mac and other projects. So the one that I'm leveraging here is being able to do a virtual LAN. And this is the architecture that's used for it. There's a Cloudflare worker object where you use a WebSocket connection between the two. And I'm trying to remember what the protocol is for this. It starts with a D. Anyway, there's a protocol that you can use so that AppleTalk can the packets for AppleTalk are moved between the 2 machines. Anyway, so that's a great article to read if you want to understand how the internals on this stuff works. I barely understand what's going on, and I do have some plans that have been done in the past for doing an online game portal. But anyway, that's for a future talk. So let's get to the games. So here they are. I've got 2 browser instances of Infinite Mac machines running here, and one of the things that you can do is you can save your information for that virtual machine, and you can upload files to it, and I've uploaded my stack called Tic Tac for 2. Anyway, before we start that, let's see what's going on in the chat. So who do we got today? We got Dave's Vintage Apple Tech, and myself, I'm in here, and Garth Beagle, Chris Anglis, and I know I'm probably butchering your last name. I apologize, Chris. I'm an American, so we don't know how to talk. We butcher the Queen's English, or the King's English now. Hey, Gutbomb. Gutbomb is here. And PRIJKS. Freaks? Don't know how to say that. Not going to try. Well, I just did. Anyway, good morning, everybody. I also want to mention that at noon, the Big Bad Biologist, Big Bad Bench, is going to be doing some work. So this stream won't last more than probably an hour, maybe an hour and a half. But you want to make sure you hey, Pete, you want to make sure that you go and watch the big bad biologist do whatever it is he's going to do to stuff today, because it's very entertaining. So, alright. So let me switch back. I don't have enough monitors so that I can keep track. So I'm going to fiddle around with my desktop a bit here. Apologize for the delay. Okay, so we've got our two machines. Oh, thanks Garth for posting the link. With the two HyperCard stacks. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I like the intro. I worked on the extro last night, or the outro, I should say, and I think that's even better. So, so you got that to look forward to, but not yet. So let's get this game running. So you can see I've already messed with it. It's, you know, hopefully you guys can see this okay. Player 1 is in the stack on the left, and player 2 is on the right. Hey Rudy, glad you could join. So the idea here is this is exactly the same stack on two different machines, and your opponent would be the person from the other machine, so it's your classic thing. I try to use the out-of-the-box icons and images and stuff for HyperCard, so if you guys aren't familiar with this, this is called a desktop telephone. And they were very popular for a long time before mobile phones and smartphones came out. So you might not recognize this this icon, but it's similar to the save icon. That was actually a floppy disk. All right, I know my audience knows this, but anyway, so the idea here is that, you know, if you try to play the game, it'll tell you, oh, you need an opponent before you can move. And there's instructions for what to do. And you can start a new game. Can you be player 2? I should have arranged to have somebody do that and set up that, but no, not right now. But I'll make all this available so you guys can mess around with it. Yes, yeah, gotta have an explanation for what a telephone is. Plain old telephone service. All right, so you click on the phone icon, and what it does is it pops up a dialog box asking you which Macintosh and which program you want to link to. So it automatically, I don't know why it does this, it wants you to talk to yourself, so it pops up with your own machine. You select the one you want, and there's security associated with this. I'm going to do guest. And then you can see it sends a message using AppleTalk over to the other player and says, do you want to play against player 2? Say yes. You know, maybe you're already playing with somebody else or playing with yourself. Anyway, so, and then it comes up with a message ready to play. So the idea behind Tic Tac Toe is pretty simple. Everybody's played it. There is a wrinkle in the way I did this. And oh yeah, and it identifies your opponent. So player 1 is my opponent. Over here player 2 is. Then you click on a square to make a move. Now it's asking me to connect from that because I didn't do the connection. And you notice that player 1 is using Bill Atkinson's image for the game token. Eric, when is this available? I want to set up a plus and an SC at home and try it. I'll have everything set up after sometime today. I'll have the beta version of this uploaded. It's not perfect, but it works well enough. Okay, so it does also give you some information about what's going on. So here's where I haven't finished it yet. It should say player 1 or player 2 taking position 2-2 or something like that, and it's not doing it yet. But you notice that it communicated back and forth between the two and put the icon down so that player 2 can see what's going on. Battleship would be a great game for this, right? Okay. If I click here, my player icon is the res edit, clown box thing, and it shows up here. Now, the thing that I did that's a twist here, it does detect whether or not you've won or not, but it's more of a racing game. You wouldn't think of Tic Tac Toe as a race game. I don't enforce moves, so player 2 and player 1 compete to grab squares as quickly as they possibly can, because I could win just by clicking all over the place here. Hey, I won because player 1 was too slow. So the idea is that the messaging just occurs asynchronously between the two applications. I'm not preventing you from making 2 moves in a row. No, it's not cheating. It's a new game. Tic Tac Toe is boring enough as it is, right? So I turned it into a race game. So sue me. Anyway, so new game. I hit new game. It starts a new game for the other players. Well, so if you don't like how the game's going, you just hit new game and it wipes it out. It does detect collisions, so if you click on something that the other player's already taken, you notice the watch came up. I'm pushing a lot of messages back and forth. In fact, it might be hung up because I clicked a little too fast. I haven't really tried this at any kind of a high rate. And it's also possible that it could be dropping the communication in between the two games. It's not 100%. There isn't a lot of error handling in here. And you'll see that it's sitting here. It's just kind of spinning its wheels. I might have broken it. Anyway. So you get the idea. Yeah, it seems to have hung up both of the emulated environments. Oh, timeout. Okay, so that's something else about AppleTalk messages. If there's not a response in a minute, it times out. So there's some issues with the game being able to play fast. And this is why I did such a simple game. Yeah, I'm using Dave's internet. That's the problem. Now, well, one of the reasons why I built the game the way I did and made it so simple is so that I could try things out to figure out what kind of what the possibilities are and whether I need to have some throttling on it. Is there a way that I could suspend player 1 from doing anything while it's handling the message from player 2? There's a couple of things I could do for coordinating to make sure that it doesn't get into a locked situation like this. So I think it's going to be a good platform for testing things out. And it's a boring game, but hey, why not? Maybe I could do Battleship here. Anyway, that's pretty much it for how the game itself works. Let's switch over to some code. So I'm going to apologize. We're going to look at code now. So if you're not into the code, stick around, learn. Let's see. All right. Here we go. So hopefully everybody can read this. I did increase the font size in the editor in HyperCard, which you can do, by the way. You can, there's, in this version of HyperCard, you can send messages to the stack, to HyperCard, telling it to set the script text size. And you can also set the font and things like that. So that's kind of useful. I've never used it before, but I think it makes it a little more readable for people on the screen. Yeah, you could make a token that goes back and forward. So you could do token, you know, you could do gaming, shared gaming, so that it's more synchronous. You could have a token shared back and forth between multiple players, so that you guys know Lord of the Flies. One of the programs would have the conch, and only that program could do something while they have it. So yeah, you could do a semaphore or a token back and forth between the programs so that you avoid collisions. That would be a good way of handling that. Of course, you have to be able to deal with situations where, what if player 3 has the token and something happens where they drop out? Now there's no token at all. So you'd have to have some kind of a timeout that would say, after a certain period of time, give control to somebody else. You know, these are all things that can be worked out in the program. So anyway, so here's the code. The front end user interface is pretty simple. Let me grab the tools. So these are just buttons, and it's the same code behind each one. And that the way you use a button, you can, yeah, like Token Ring, that works. So we should go back to Token Ring. You just change the icon for it. This is another button that is just simply, you know, it's not enabled for clicking. It's just so that you can display the icon. This, of course, is the button for starting it up. And what I like to do is to put all of the functions code. We should not go back to Token Ring. Yeah, because, you know, you take the cable out, and then if you tip it, the token can fall out of the cable and roll under a desk, and now your network's hosed. So you don't want to lose that token. Anyway, so I like to move code outside of the objects and put them somewhere else, either in the card stack or on the stack code area. Makes it a little easier to work. For very large games, you can run into limitations with it, but this is a pretty simple game. So that just calls a handler called doConnect. Let's see, new game. Very similar, do new game. Instructions, do instructions. Now, is it really critical that the instructions be buried in a handler? No, it could have just been left on the button. It's not that big a deal. But what if you wanted to send the instructions somewhere? Or trigger the instructions a different way. So you got your name, which is a locked field. Your opponent, the program address, so that's what they call it in this OS, is the program address is what you're getting for the other computer. And then here's the messages block, and then, oh, one of the features I didn't show you. Let me switch back. This is kind of cool. So when you're playing a game and you want to intimidate the other player, what do? What you do is you talk smack. So it's like, here, you're going down. And you hit enter, and it sends the message to the other game. So you can actually use this as a chat application. Says you. So you can talk back and forth while you're playing. Of course, if you're doing that, that means you're not clicking on buttons. So All right. So back to the code. Get the right mouse. Transition. Here we go. All right. So that's the user interface for it. Really simple, just a single card stack. Not all that much to it. So the first thing you do is open the stack, and I have some global variables for the program address, and the token is are you going to be the ResEdit icon, or are you going to be Bill Atkinson? And then I empty out some stuff, so if you played the game, you know, previously, and who knows if that computer's available, I just went ahead and cleared it. And then it clears up the button array for the game. So that's where these repeats are. Pretty simple stuff. When you refer to icons in buttons, you can assign them by name of the icon or the number. But if you're going to actually read what's in it, you have to do it by number. It's a limitation that I wish they had fixed, but you know, we didn't get a new version of HyperCard. So here's that do connect. I check to see if my program address is empty. You know, we're not connected. Oh, if you haven't put your name into the name field, so you start up the stack, then it asks you to do that before you can do anything. Then the next thing you do is we ask the player to find an opponent. So this is that dialog box I was talking about where it asks you to find another computer on the network. And you do that. I have a function, of course, get remote player. So let's go to that function. I don't know why they don't do these alphabetically. Get remote player. All right. Get remote player uses the answer keyword, but answer program. Instead of answer without this program, if you did answer, it would ask the user, or it would pop up a box for the user. But answer program tells it that we want you to find another computer on the network. Then it returns, and this of type restricts it to only looking for computers that have HyperCard running. So you're going to talk to another application, you only want to talk to HyperCard. You don't want to see a list of every program that the guy's got running on his computer. This limits it to just the HyperCard one, which is why on that list you only saw HyperCard listed. Doing that answer puts the result of your dialogue in a variable called the result. The result could be a cancel, could be anything like that. So I just stick the display what the result was. If result has something in it, it means that you canceled it or decided not to do it. It is the keyword that stores the actual response. Hey, Billgoats. Yes, I happened to find this. Where did I find it? It's not documented well. I think it was in... I think I found it in this book. So it's Danny Goodman's The Complete HyperCard 2.2 Handbook. It is my Bible for HyperCard. I believe the reference was there. Could have been somewhere else, but I'll have to dig that up. But yeah, you can say of type wild EPO1. I'm not sure why you don't just use wild. Wild is the name for HyperCard. Hey Rudy, it was great having you join. Thank you. I hope you have a good day. So anyway, if you've got something in the result from the answer program prompt, that means they didn't actually pick one. If there isn't anything in the result, it's kind of confusing. Then it actually has what you want, and that would be the string that indicates the AppleTalk. oh, what do you call it? Hang on a second. I gotta remember what. So I'm gonna go to the control panels. You can't see me doing this. AppleTalk. The current zone. Okay, so the first part of it is the zone. If there's no zone identified, it uses an asterisk. It's kind of like file paths. Then a colon, the computer name that was given in the link sharing, and then the application after that. Okay, so let's go back to on the stack. So, or excuse me, do connect. So we've got, now we have the program address, and this function puts it into the global program address. So we're checking to see if program address is empty. If it's not empty, then we have a potential opponent, or at least the machine where someone's running HyperCard. And this is why you don't know what stack they're running at, but you can find out. You can send a message to the remote computer's HyperCard and find out what the stack is. Are they running the same stack that you are? You can. So in my request ask to play, what I'm doing is I'm asking the other the opponent, do they want to play a game with me, and I pass them the name that I gave myself. So let's go look at that. Where is it? Get game asked to play. All right. So here, request is the other method that you can use to talk to another program. Request will execute a function. Answer, answer does it a different way. So ask to play, so I'm executing a function on the other stack that pops up, and here's ask to play. So ask to play is defined in here, the function. If I call the other stack and say run the program, or run the function ask to play, it does, do you want to play against the name? So the parameter that's passed is the name. That returns true or false, depending on how the user prompt answered. The result tells you whether or not it returned. It has the actual answer of what the user said, true or false. So you can see a pattern here to how these the communication with AppleTalk works. And that's really just what we're doing. It's just going back and forth between here. Request if they want to play a game. Here's where you could run into a collision. I decide that the player that's asking if the other player wants to play gets to have this token. And then we set the token for the other player to the other token. So you could have messages kind of conflicting here. If two people asked at the same time and you got into a locking situation, it might be a little bit crazy, but so those could happen. And then you would just slap in a new game and resolve it, I guess. Display, or you could check and see, do they, you could force the other player to be the other token. I don't know. You got to worry about these conditions though, because you have program 1 talking to program 2. They have the same code, so they could tell each other they have to do it. You're going to have some kind of collision detection and figure out what to do in that case. The opponent might not want to play, so you have to deal with that, etc. So I built a function too that says display message, and that's what throws it in that box. But display message does more than just display a message. It's not a function, it's a handler. display message. So it displays a message in there, and then it sets the scroll to the bottom, so you're always at the bottom of the box, so you can see what's being put in there. So that's a pretty straightforward thing. There's also request display message. So my naming convention for the functions, request means I'm going to send a request to the other player, and so what I'm doing is sending. Oh yeah, that's right. So you have request and send. Send means I'm going to send it code I want it to execute. Request means I want it to execute a function and return a value. Both of them return values. 1-bit fever dreams. Only send a game request. You're not being the requestee. So that silly heart thing gets in the way of seeing the discussion. Okay, so this sends a message and calls the display message for the other person and fills it in their box. So that's pretty much it for the, the code all follows that same pattern. Getting the opponent's token is a local function because it's not a request. It doesn't have that request on the front of it. Set token sets the token. You can request the token from the other player. So I run the get token function on the other thing so that it brings it back. Yeah, but if the comment's on the bottom, you can't scroll any lower. That's the problem. So I really hate that little animation or emoticon thing that they've got in the corner. It's like, why did you overlay it on top of the discussion? So anyway, someday they'll fix it or not. Oh, you were scrolling it for me. Thank you. I've not always been accused of being the sharpest stick in the bundle, so I missed the intent. Thank you for scrolling. So here's where you can request receive move. Here's a receive move, so the opponent is moving. It's just a lot of talking back and forth between the two programs. Do new game. So I request a new game. That way it forces a new game for the other player and does a new game for me. So that's why this do new game is here. I wanted to encapsulate the fact that a new game needed to be for both players. So I wanted to have this handler be called to do request new game and then new game locally. If I stuck the communication for both players in a function and then called it, and then that function called the other function, you would end up having the message passed back and forth between the two programs. So you have to avoid that. Some of the things you have to worry about, you could get into an infinite loop if you're not careful. So there's new game. Get the remote player. So there aren't a lot of functions in here. It's really just the only kind of extras I have is I've got a replace text function I use so that you can get rid, you can substitute text. You can turn the reaction. Oh, you can turn reactions off? Yeah, that's an idea. Thanks, Garth. Yeah, the reaction thing just gets in the way as far as I'm concerned. So that's it. That's it for the code. Do instructions is just displaying a bunch of messages. Winning move. Here's something that's a little different. So I tried to be clever about this and to use, because if you think of the game board, it wraps around vertically and horizontally. It's more of a torus. So if when you're checking to see whether you've got all three in a row or diagonally or whatever, you could use modular, like mod functions to try to do it, figure it out, but that's more complicated for this small of a grid. So I just went with a really simple hard-coded check these values, so it does the check vertical, check horizontal, check diagonal kind of thing. This is the when you click on a button, it calls bust a move. So this function, it makes sure, this should be the global. If card field program address of card game is not empty. See, I didn't have a global at one time. So it should be checking this. So here's a bug in the code. Well, it's not really a bug. I mean, it works just fine. If program address is not empty, if token is not empty, you can move. So you request a move, and then you display taking the message, or taking position message. I set the icon, and I check to see if it's a winning move. And if it is a winning move, then you tell the other person they lost. It checks to see whether or not that place is already taken. You need a token set before you can move. You need an opponent before you can move. So there's a little bit of error handling in here, but not much. Here's one other thing. I needed to know whether or not I received. Why did I do this? Capture get name event. Oh, okay. So there's an event handler where you can capture events so that you can poke around and look at things in there. Apple events have a class, an ID, and a sender. I wanted to know exactly who I am, and there's no function to actually check to see what that I could find in HyperCard to check to see what the my computer's program address is. There's probably an external command. There might be something in AppleScript to do it. Well, all I had to do was capture the event or the message that was being sent from the other program. It tells me what my program address is because you're picking it from that dialog, right? So I capture, and if it includes get name, then I know what the program address is because it's the sender for that Apple event. So I'm using this to scrape what my own name is, or what my own AppleTalk zone computer name and program is. So it's kind of a convoluted way to do it, but it worked. Otherwise, you would have to have that sent multiple ways. It still checks to see if you've got the security when you try to do a move, so that slows it down. I'm going to have to figure out if there's ways around that so that once one connects, the other one doesn't have to do anything. It's automatically connected for them, but haven't looked into it enough to figure it out. So I think the operating system's just going to get in the way and still have that dialog pop up asking you for the password to do the link sharing, or if there isn't a password, you could connect as guest if that's set up. So there is some setup you have to do to make sure that AppleTalk is working properly between the two computers. It's not out of the box that way. So let's. So I think I've shown you enough of the code. Let me show you how you have to set this up. All right. So essentially, let's quit HyperCard here. There's a couple of things you have to do. You have to turn on AppleTalk. I've got it set to Ethernet here. There's no zone set up. You have to set up sharing. So in the sharing setup, I don't need to share files, but it was an easy way for me to copy the two files between it. You do have to have program linking turned on. I didn't set a password for this, and there's a problem later without setting a password. There's a way around it. You know, maybe you want to have people on an AppleTalk network where you have to set a password so that you don't have people jumping in. Control panel. You have to go to users and groups. And if I set it up so guest would work. You have to have program linking, allow guests to link to programs on this Macintosh set. And then that way, when you try to connect, the dialog box that comes up, you can select whether you're the guest or if you were the, it's a user. So let me see if I can get that to pop up. So if we pick, yeah, here it is. So I could set it up with a password. It does require a password. So if I try to do it just as a registered user, okay, now it's gone off in the weeds. Anyway, doesn't work. You have to have a password for a user. But you can set up guest without a password. Let's go over here. Oh, I see. It's asking me. No, I don't want to play. Okay. So I guess it did work without a password. Well, the first time I tried it, you had to have a password. So, but if you look at guest, it doesn't have any of that. So let's try it again. I'm gonna quit HyperCard over here. We'll run it again. I did this quickly in a weekend. There's probably other things that I need to learn about this so I can do it right. So pick the other player. HyperCard's not running, so it won't let me do it. So let me go get HyperCard running. So in AppleTalk, it's constantly broadcasting, or not constantly, it broadcasts, I'm here and this is my ID. And if there's another program that, or another computer on the AppleTalk network that's using the same ID, it has to respond back, no, I've already got that ID. And then it'll try a different one and say, okay, I'm using this one instead. It's kind of an interesting network system. It also prevents it from scaling. Okay, so you can connect as guest, and there's no password needed. There. All right, you got your icons assigned, and you can play. So this is what I want to avoid. If this one's already linked, it would be nice if you didn't have to go through this, but I'm not sure how I can get around it. It's just the way the security works. But once you get going, so what I probably should do is have a prevent you from moving, have you go through sharing back and forth everything so that you've gotten through all the password stuff in your connection and everything is ready to go, and then have a countdown, 3, 2, 1, start, and you could play the game then. That way it's a little more equitable. That's an idea. So, like I said, this is a test platform for figuring out what to do with the gaming. And there we are. So that's it. It's really not that complicated to use AppleTalk. Let me transition back here. Yeah, it's really not all that complicated to use AppleTalk to do this. They made it very simple in HyperCard to do this. You do have to, it's a different paradigm. You do have to think out of the box a bit. This requires System 7 and up to work. It works in 8.6. I've gone that high. It probably works the same way in 9. But you do have to have System 7 and up. Ron, from Ron's computer videos, has a good video on doing the Ultimate 7.1 setup that for older Macs that don't have a lot of resources, 7.1 works better than 7.6.1 or 7.5. And there are things that you can do to your 7.1 environment to make it more like 7.5, like putting the clock in the upper right corner, things like that. It's based on Eric Helgeson's blog post on the Ultimate 7.1 configuration. So I'd suggest if you've got a computer, a box that's really light on resources, I'd go there. Or you could just set up 7.6.1 if you wanted to, but that's gonna slow down your computer. This HyperCard stack can work out of the box without making any changes to HyperCard. The adventure game sucks resources like there's no tomorrow and has to have additional memory to run. I did run it successfully on a Mac SE with 4 megabytes of RAM, but I had to set the amount of memory used by HyperCard to like 2.5 megabytes, so it used up quite a bit of resources. So, oh yeah, there's a custom image that Ron uploaded to the garden. There are a couple of things that are in that image that would not run on my box, so you can boot into it and then go disable those extensions if you don't have, or if you do have problems with it. So it's a little bit loaded up. Ron did a great job, but he added probably a bit more than I would have put into it. But it's a good starting point, and it will boot, so you don't have to worry about that. It's not like it's going to completely fail. It just pops up error messages and says that it can't do those things. I think it has to do with QuickTime, and I was running on a classic SE, so yeah, it's got all the enablers in it. So that's a good solution, and you can have an AppleTalk network between the two. You can use between 2 computers just a straight up printer cable to set up serial AppleTalk, or you can do it over Ethernet. There is if you've got more than 2 computers and you want to do a true AppleTalk network, I suggest the Nethernet that Joe from Joe's Computer Museum, he's got kits you can buy that is designed to be used as a twisted pair network for AppleTalk. Instead of phone lines, he uses Ethernet connectors, so it's really easy to use your existing cables to do it. Gut bomb. I'll be using 2 Blue SCSI V2s over Wi-Fi. Oh, okay. Yep. Yeah, I really like the Nethernet. I'm not sure which pronunciation it is. Stuff that kit that Joe has. It's a very simple design with a few resistors, and it was the first thing I put together. From He has a video from Marcintosh 2 years ago, and I bought enough to make 20 of them, and then ended up setting up an Ethernet network, so I don't need them. But still, it's pretty cool. Sad Mac plus in the snow. Ooh, that's not good. Neithernet, yeah. Nethernet. Not Ethernet, I think is the idea. So, anyway, that's it for the game. It's almost 11 o'clock, so it's been an hour. I'm going to wrap it up. If you guys have questions about this, I'll have the program up there. I'll put it on Macintosh Garden so that you guys could download it and mess around with it. I'll go ahead and slap up the current alpha version of it. I don't know if I'm going to do much more with it other than what I've done. Maybe play around with stuff and see if I've got neither. Yeah, it's not Ethernet, it's Neither or some, I don't know. It's Joe talk. So to close out, I've got a coffee if you guys care to contribute to the stuff I do. I've got man, I'm really having mental blocks today. I have a Patreon, and I have been posting stuff in Patreon, things that eventually go to my blog, or I'm thinking about throwing some premiere videos up there when I get things that would stay there for a week and then end up going to YouTube, similar to what Steve and some of the other creators do. But everything that I do eventually goes out publicly, so it's not something where you have to join that, But it does help me support other creators, because I'm pretty much every dollar that I get on Patreon just turns around and goes back out. So I guess really I'm supporting Patreon more than I am myself with it. But there are some things that I do each year, like I always put together for VCF Midwest a classic computer to give away as part of a raffle, and I intend to do that this year. I don't know if I'm going to have a panel this year. I emailed the VCF Midwest person that handles that, and they said they're not going to make their decision about who's got panels until 8 weeks before. So I'll prepare and everything, and if I don't get a panel, then I'll just do a live, or not a live video. I'll prepare a video instead for the topic I was going to do. Debating whether I want to get a table or not. I'd like to do a table with some put some computers up with my games and things so that people can sit down and take a look at them. But that also prevents me from going around and looking at stuff, because you have to man your table. So kind of debating on that too. Anyway, that's enough about VCF. Marcintosh is coming up pretty quickly here. Last time I looked at the calendar, that's next month. Marcintosh is everything Macintosh in March, and there's a lot of cool creators doing a bunch of stuff, and I'll be putting some stuff out there. And then April is going to be April Apples, so it'll be Apple II, Apple IIe. I've got an Apple II GS that I plan on doing. HyperCard runs on the Apple II GS, so I plan on creating some content there. Where is Midwest? Where in the Midwest? It's in the Chicago area. They did move the venue. It was in Elmhurst, which is a suburb of Chicago. It's in a different suburb of Chicago, but if you were to book a flight into, what's the major airport in Chicago? O'Hare. You can get to it. So it's not like it's, you're going to the wrong place if you fly into there. It'll be within reach. I drive because I live in Michigan, and I'm a glutton for punishment, and I also don't want to have to deal with carry-on. So, what else? Haven't really done much with the HyperCard course. Kind of ran out of steam on that, mostly because I've been working on programming. But I think for Marchintosh, I'm going to spend some time showing off the adventure, mostly text adventure game. Oh, you're about 20 minutes from Elmhurst. So, cool. So you're in the area. Yeah, O'Hare is the airport. Yeah, that's it. So, like and subscribe. I'll be getting more content out there. It's been kind of a bit of a dry spell, but committed to doing it. And videos like this. So thank you very much for joining, and I'll see you on the next one. Oh, I have a new outro too, so you get to see that. I hope to see everybody at VCF Midwest too. And of course, I don't have it queued up. I need to set up buttons and things so that I can do this. I don't know why I haven't. You get to listen to me ramble about why I'm not prepared. What else is there? Where did I put the outro? Why is it not at the top of the list? There it is. See you guys later.